Let me tell you about Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh my god. I'll never forget the first time I watched him on stream, and like he was okay at first. I think it was for like VR missions, and then things just kind of quietly but somehow loudly also went downhill.
Yeah.
I don't remember which game it was.
You know what that reminds me of? You know that meme of like that guy in the stadium with like the sunglasses and his arm is around like the shoulder of the girl, and like the meme is like, let me tell you about like X subject, and like she's clearly not interested, but he's going like, he's not stopping. Yeah, it reminds me of that.
That image is the perfect representation of my marriage. It's just nonstop complaining about Metal Gear, and for some reason I'm still married.
I was gonna say, if you replace like just Metal Gear with Metal Gear Solid 4 and your wife with me and fingers, that's the podcast. That's it. That's the podcast.
Yep. Hey, I'm Fingers.
Hey everyone, this is Days Ahead.
And I'm Nitroid. You're listening to the Kojima Frequency. You know, what's great about it, though, is that she has heard me rant about this so much that if necessary, she can jump in and play interference.
Has she actually like played all the games though with you, or has she seen them?
Yeah, to a disgusting degree.
Yeah.
And what's really annoying is that she's better at MGS5 than I am.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Metal Gear Solid V, because I got yelled at the last time I said 5.
You know who you're going to get yelled at for saying V.
Yep.
Well, do you say Grand Theft Auto V? Because it's also written in the Roman numeral, isn't it?
Ooh.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. The whole V thing with Venom, and I don't know. It was just, you can call it whatever. I don't care.
5 for Vendetta.
MGSV rolls off the tongue pretty good.
But if they ever did a Metal Gear Solid 6, would they go back to Arabic numerals, or would they do Roman numerals? Or would they even call it Metal Gear Solid 6? Because it's not even with Kojima anymore.
Metal Gear Solid Vi.
They would put the 6 in one of the O's.
No.
Bring back Viper.
Well, maybe they don't even call it Metal Gear Solid. They might call it Metal Gear something else, so they could like differentiate it from the Kojima games.
Hopefully, that's the way it goes. I think just continuing to go on this canon, we could do like the in-between stuff, but yeah, just kind of having like an offshoot. I don't know. Last time with Survive, that didn't work out so great, but I appreciated it.
I have a theory about Survive.
I've actually never played it. It came out, 4 years ago already? Or 3 years ago?
Yeah, it exists. It's okay. You could take it or leave it.
I've played every canon Metal Gear game and a few of the spin-offs like, Spable and all that, but I there's a few of those have like slipped through the cracks. I've never played those.
I just think that they knew that nothing they would do would be received warmly, so they just kind of used it as an excuse to say, okay, let's make something goofy and low risk to get the negativity out of the way, and we'll just do what we want. Not much of a theory.
I thought it was going to be some deep shit, like Kojima was involved at the beginning, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
As soon as that game, or at least I understood the gameplay that came out, I was just like, okay, this is a game that when it gets on Steam sale, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to enjoy it, and then I'm going to message like my other friends drunk and be like, we all need to get drunk and play this together, and it'll be worth everybody's $15. So I don't think it's as bad as people thought it would be.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened to us at launch, but I think, yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea of a Metal Gear game in between the two segments, that sounds interesting, but I think if you're expecting something deep, you'd be disappointed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I kind of was like going into it like a B movie. I was like, all right, cool, this will be some fun. Like, this won't matter. This won't be canon or anything, so let's just see what this game's about and what it offers as a game. And that's how I enjoyed it, because I think that's how you're supposed to enjoy stuff. But
yeah, but if you do that, then you can't get outraged about it. And then what are you going to tweet angrily about? It doesn't work.
I mean, you got to make YouTube money.
As someone who appreciates historical context, it's so hard to pick a side here.
Yeah, I mean, people were pissed off. I mean, that's, I think that's really the reason. Is just everybody was still just mad about the split, and whatever they put out, whether it had been the best Metal Gear game that, was ever made, it wouldn't have mattered.
Oh, definitely.
It would have been met with like, nah, you did our boy wrong. Fuck you. That's basically how people have been thinking.
It's like being mad at acid, though.
But it's also kind of like the Skylar effect is because like we're like we're watching it from like Kojima's point of view and we're only like seeing his, but Kojima did some shady shit too, that's documented and then stuff that's alleged. So it's just I can see why the split happened. I get it. Today on the show, coming to us live from Kyoto, Japan, we have Oliver Jia, graduate student of international relations, researcher on Japan DPRK relations, the social media editor for NK News, a website focused on North Korea, and a lifelong Kojima fan. How's it going today, buddy?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got to have a proper conversation because you and I have been talking back and forth about Metal Gear and all sorts of things for, God, how long now? He's one of the, Oliver is one of the more knowledgeable people about Kojima's work that I've had the opportunity to talk to. And just the amount of things that you have been involved in, the life you've lived so far is crazy impressive to me as someone in my 30s who has done less than half of what you've done. So I'm just going to make you uncomfortable right off the bat.
Yeah, well, I still haven't written the great American novel yet, and I still haven't directed the greatest film of all time. So, not quite there yet.
God, you got to get on that. Come on.
Yeah, Orson Welles was, I think,
so long.
Orson Welles was, 27 when he did Citizen Kane, and Bret Easton Ellis was 21 when he wrote Less Than Zero. So, got a big competition ahead.
Nas was 19 when he wrote Illmatic. I'm just saying.
Well, how old was Alexander the Great when he did his Conquest too? So.
How old? Well, people were dying at like 30. How old was Kojima when he started work on Metal Gear? That's something I'm not familiar with. Anybody know?
Late 20s, 30s, early 30s, something around there. I want to say 20s. But, God, you asked me that too quick. Now I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a tangent, but I think Masahiro Sakurai was, 19 when he designed Kirby. So I guess it depends, how exactly do you find working on? Are you talking about, concepts or actually being part of Konami or being part of, a team? So I'm sure a lot of these people were thinking of their game designs when they were much younger.
Yeah.
And when he started anyway, he wasn't anywhere near what he's become since then. Because, they gave him a job and were like, hey, this is a project, make a game. These are the stipulations, go. It wasn't anything resembling what it has become. It wasn't a big industry. It was just another product to sell.
You made me think of when they sold the NES with Rob, and I think they were counting on Rob to sell the console. They thought that Rob would be the more attractive element of the combo. And now who the fuck cares about Rob other than Rob mains?
Rob mains.
Well, speaking of that, I got a twin Famicom this year, modded for RGB. So I've been going through all those early 8-bit games from early 80s. So it's quite a trip, having them actually in physical cartridge form and also disc form and, not emulators or anything on actual hardware.
Nice.
That's tight.
That always makes such a big difference too. Even emulated well, there's always little timing differences, visual differences that stand out.
That's the thing I've heard from the speedrun community mainly. It's there's just these tiny little timing differences just on no matter how fast your computer is, it's just not doing it the same way the console would.
Yeah, I also got an OSSE unit so I can hook it up to my 4K TV, make it look all nice. But I've also decided I want to go for a complete Famicom disk system set because it's a system that's not really covered that much, I think, outside of Japan. And then even within Japan, it's not super popular. And also they're very small, they're very easy to store, and there's only about 200 games and nothing too expensive, really. So that's my long-term goal as a retro game collector.
So what is... You kind of lost me there. That's not the standard Famicom?
No, because in Japan you have the cartridges, which is the normal Famicom, but then Nintendo released an add-on called the Famicom Disk System, and it was released at a time to try to make games cheaper for the consumer because discs they're on sort of floppy disks, very similar to them. So those were cheaper to produce and cheaper to sell. And actually, you could rewrite these discs, so you could take them to kiosks at electronic stores, insert the disc into the kiosk, it would delete the game, and then rewrite it to a new game, and that was also super cheap. So that lasted for pretty much, I think, almost 10 years, I think, but about 200 of those were released on the disk system, but that was never released in America or Europe.
Oh, that's crazy. I never knew about
but
that.
the thing is like when you buy these discs, it might not actually be what it says on the label because these are rewritable. You might be getting a completely different game, and also you can have up to 2 games on each disc.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare for game preservation.
It is. I bought like a copy of, for example, Volleyball, which is a very early launch game for a sports launch game on Famicom disk system. But on the other side, I didn't even realize this until I got home. There was a copy of Othello on there, so you run into stuff like that. So. Yeah.
What a nice surprise.
So I got to ask you, just kind of steering this back into Metal Gear and your experience. You know, on social media, you tend to focus a lot on international politics, specifically with regards to North Korea. And, you know, you're very well read in terms of history. I guess, how does your interest in Kojima's work and Metal Gear sort of tie into your love of you know, Asian studies, North Korea, everything in that realm? Like, would you say there's a tie there, or are these interests that kind of exist in separate continuums for you?
Well, I think there's definitely there is definitely a tie between both. You know, it's kind of a meme at this point, but they say you learn about the Cold War through Metal Gear Solid 3 if you're a certain age. So,
Fuck.
yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that's like completely how I learned about the Cold War, obviously, but because like, you know, if you're a certain age, you know, you're learning about all these like, you know, references to political events, to like, you know, nuclear weapons and all that. It is stuff you don't really see that much in that kind of depth compared to other video games. So, well, to rewind, to go back even further, the first time I had any experience with Metal Gear was actually Super Smash Brothers Brawl in 2008. I think I would have been.
You're kidding me.
That is such an interesting perspective. Holy
because
shit.
I would have. Well, keep in mind, I was born in 1997, so I would have been 10 or 11 when that came out. So kind of too young to play Metal Gear, and I never had any PlayStation console. But then in Smash Brothers, I see Snake, and it says, "Oh, who's this character? Why does he look so real, quote unquote, compared to all these other characters?" So yeah, that's how I got introduced to Metal Gear. But because I didn't have a PlayStation, I could only watch really gameplay videos. I did get the Twin Snakes later on, and maybe we'll get into that. But
Whoa.
so yeah, what actually happened, and this is the complete wrong way to get into Metal Gear. I would not recommend anybody do this. I watched like long play walkthroughs of every single Metal Gear game on YouTube. I spent weeks doing that, but I didn't go in the year that the games came out. I went in the chronological order. So from Metal Gear Solid 3 until Metal Gear Solid 4. Don't do that. If you're listening to this and you want to get into Metal Gear, do not do that. But yeah, that's how I got into Metal Gear. But then later on, when the HD collection came out to Xbox 360, that was like, you know, wow, I can't believe I can actually finally play these games now, even though I know everything that's going to happen, but I can actually play them now.
You know, this is telling me two things. First, that it really doesn't matter how you get into Metal Gear or Kojima's games, as long as you have enough of an interest to sort of dive into the deep waters. I've got a friend, I've mentioned him before, but he started with Metal Gear Solid 4 and sort of used that as a springboard to learn about everything else in Kojima's, I don't know, you couldn't really call it a filmography. What would you call that? A gameography? I don't know what you'd call it.
A discography, since like they're mostly on disc.
But
I don't know.
He ended up becoming someone so knowledgeable that I often go to him for answers on the more technical aspects of these things. So there's really no wrong way to get into it, though there I would say are more ideal ways, as you sort of alluded to. And two, the second thing I've learned from this is that we have got to get some older guests because I'm feeling old as hell right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
when he said you're born in 97,
Yep.
he was like a little baby on his mom's lap when he was when Metal Gear 1 came out.
I was 4 years old when Metal Gear 1 came out.
To be fair, when I actually did go back and play the games, I did go in the order that they did come out, and that's actually starting with Metal Gear, or the 8-bit Metal Gear game, and I played that on an MSX2 emulator. So, yeah, that was. I try to tell people to, you know, if you can, and if you have like a tolerance for old games, go back and actually do start with the 8-bit games, not just Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, because you're getting like all the references that are like definitely placed there intentionally that are just nodding back to the previous games, and it's like you'll get the story, but it just the way it's delivered, it's kind of like in a cheeky way where you're like, I see what you're doing here. Like it's definitely better to do release order, I'd say. But yeah, like Nitro had said, it really doesn't matter. You can come in from anywhere.
So
You'll be all right.
So I'm wondering, you not too long ago moved from the United States to Japan. You're studying abroad, correct?
Yes.
How has that sort of changed your perspective on these games? I mean, I'm assuming you understood Japanese long before you moved to Japan, so you had been more familiar with the other side of this, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I did major in Japanese, so just for some context, so Japanese was my major back at university, and I studied abroad in Japan for the first time when I was a junior, and that was for 15 months, which is, I think, quite longer than the average person studies abroad. But that time spent here, that pretty much inspired me. Well, I want to come back now. I want to do graduate school here, so that's what I did last year. But well, the biggest influence on video games just as a whole is because I'm in the heart of it at all. There's like so many retro game stores, and also so much of this like stuff that like I really wanted to play, consoles I wanted to when I was a younger kid. I can actually get them now, and I can get them without any kind of restrictions. I don't have to worry about what was localized, what was released in my country. It's all here. So the access to having it, that's certainly one plus. But with the context of Metal Gear, the only Metal Gear game that I've played the whole way through in Japanese is Metal Gear Solid 1 on PlayStation 1. So it is interesting to see, what was translated, what they adapted from the Japanese to the English. But I think the biggest takeaway is that, well, Metal Gear is pretty much just like an anime in Japanese, essentially. It's all the same voice actors from, famous voice actors from a lot of old anime series from that era. And the way that they localized it, they kept some of the anime-esque vibes to it, but they did certainly try to like westernize it more to, I think, appeal to a wider audience. But I also think that worked in its favor because these are all, for the most part, Western characters.
Yeah. I guess the wider question I was trying to allude to there was not just with regards to Metal Gear, but how much would you say in terms of media that has come from Japan to the West has lost context in that transfer? How much is being misunderstood or missed in the West as a result of that localization process?
Well, I think one example that comes to mind is how people sort of make fun of Snake for repeating the same thing that other people say. And so there's two theories about this. The one theory is that it's sort of like a militaristic way of like just repeating the information to make sure that you got it. But if you look at like the way that like sort of Japanese people talk, there's sort of like a back channeling going on. It's very common in the Japanese language to sort of repeat like the last word of what someone else said, and just to prove that you're listening. So I think it was a mixture of both. But for stuff like that, when people say that like the dialogue in Metal Gear is like awkward or it feels stiff or not natural, I think that's just a result of like how they tried to translate it and how they tried to put all this information so that's accessible from Japanese to English.
Okay, yeah. And I know like in the West, a lot of people who play games or watch anime tend to romanticize Japan quite a bit. And you sort of mentioned how that sort of grinds on you a bit.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of people over here too that romanticize the West because they get their entire image of that from Hollywood movies, from TV shows. There's actually a word called Paris syndrome, where especially for Japanese women into like fashion and like food and all that kind of stuff, they have this like really idealistic image of Paris. But then when they go to Paris and they actually realize what actually France is, they kind of have like a mental breakdown. They didn't expect it to be this way. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah, it's pretty funny. If you look up Paris syndrome, it's a real thing.
So are there like we've got people in the US who are enormous anime fans. So are there people in Japan who are similarly like, I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants fans or something? Fans of
SpongeBob
American
is global,
animation.
man. That's an international
right?
phenomenon.
I don't know. I picked a name. Like
think like
is there an equivalent?
Like a Western would be equivalent, I think. And I think Kojima kind of puts that in his games with the whole, he's like, I like spaghetti westerns. It's like that scene in Kill Bill. He's like, I like baseball.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of, there actually, I don't know if like how many of them there would be, but I've met a few in my day too. The Japanese people that are really obsessed with like Western stuff, with Hollywood movies, with music, and all that. And so some of them it's very surface level, not too different from like weeaboos, where they get their entire image from that. But I've also met a few people where they actually are quite serious about learning English. They have spent quite about a bit of time abroad, and they actually really did like the experience, and they want to go back, or they did move back. So yeah, there's all sorts of different people from all walks of life who view Western stuff here.
And you've got like the military over in Okinawa too that are stationed there. So there's just that kind of like cross, culture type thing going on.
Yeah, I've been to Yokosuka, which is also where the first Shenmue took place. That was one for visiting, actually. But there's when you go to Yokosuka, there's actually a lot of American servicemen walking around, and you hear far more English in places like that than you would in the average Japanese town. So,
what about sailors?
Sailors, a few sailors, but I didn't want to bother them because I didn't want to get into any drunken bar fights. Yeah, Shenmue is also a series that I would say if Metal Gear is like number one for me, Shenmue would probably be like number two.
Yeah, first two games for sure. Yeah, that third one was a shame.
Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter for that. You don't need to tell me twice.
Yeah, man, I wanted it to be good. I was right there with you, but that energy stamina.
Let me put it this way: it's a game that I can recommend to Shenmue fans, but I can't recommend it to anybody else because if you showed it to the average person, they'd be like, "Is there something wrong with you? Why do you like this game? Why did you sink like 30 hours into this?"
Yeah. Here's to part 4.
Yeah, it'll happen. I think it'll happen. It's just like
it will. Another 10 years.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take as long as it took for the third one, but it's like he could technically just make the same kind of game as Shenmue 3 and then just like put it as number 4 because all the assets are there. But it's like,
yeah, I was about to say they have the engine now, so yeah, you're right. They could just kind of crank out another one.
But the real question is like, do you want to? Because the third one already has like a lot of bad will among people, not just because of how it turned out, but because of how the Kickstarter was handled. And I have a sense that if they put that like on crowdfunding again, you wouldn't get anywhere near the same amount of money.
Yeah, not as much, but that's the thing. Like, they didn't need all that extra Kickstarter shit. Like, the stuff that they added into the game, I was like, they all could have just used your focus in other areas for sure. But
how many does he want to make?
Well, this is something that I don't think a lot of Shenmue fans want to admit, but like Yu Suzuki, he's from a different age. He's even said he doesn't play video games. So he said that there's like no modern conveniences of like, of modern games in Shenmue 3. So, and he actually said that if I made a Shenmue 4, I'd want to make it more modern based off the feedback. Yeah, you should have done that the first time, This is 2020. It's not, 2000 anymore.
So it is kind of a fascinating anachronism, though, because from what I've heard, and I'm not someone who is a big Shenmue fan. I've played a little bit of 1 and 2, but I've never completed either, so my knowledge is limited on this. But from what I understood, fans of the original 2 who understood what these games are did enjoy 3 quite a bit. The Kickstarter issues notwithstanding.
Well, it was nostalgic for sure, and especially when you boot it up in the beginning, when you see both of them in that cave. And also, actually, I will say, like, presentation-wise, like, the environments actually look really good. The music is good.
Yeah, it looked great.
Yeah, the faces are a bit weird, and, like, the animations are a bit stiff. And also, sort of, what I was referring to earlier with, like, translation issues between games. The reason why people make fun of the English dialogue is because you could tell they had, like, a dozen translators working on this. The script is really inconsistent, and it seems that a lot of them went for, like, literal translation, which ends up with a lot of wonky English dialogue.
And there's so many characters too that all have to have a certain, it's just like, it's a lot of lines. So just a lot of them are just like, it felt like hastily done. And they're like, yeah, that'll work. All right, yeah, we'll take that one, sure.
I don't know if they did it this time, but apparently for Shenmue 1, they literally got like anyone who could speak English and called themselves a voice actor who lived in like the Tokyo area to record the voices.
They had to cast the whole damn town.
Yeah.
It was like so many people. It's pretty, like, Shenmue was impressive as shit when it first came out.
So basically the Silent Hill 2 casting strategy.
Yeah, but also, I mean, they flew Corey Marshall to Japan to record instead of actually, like, being smart and just, like, recording in America or, like, renting a studio in America.
Yeah, I've heard some stuff with Kojima kind of doing the same type stuff, like flying people out for stuff that could have definitely been a phone call. Rika Muranaka, he would, like, call her at, like, 3 a.m. and just be like, hey, I need another take. And, like, you need to fly to Japan tomorrow. And it's just like, what? Whoa, what? Like... so he was kind of like a little bit demanding when it came to stuff.
Well, the one thing that I was thinking, though, I think, like, that era of video games, though, where you had those types of, like, choices, you had that kind of, like, excess of creativity, you really don't see it that much anymore because I think games are becoming more like Hollywood films. So, like, to me, Metal Gear Solid 5 is, like, the example of, like, the last, like, huge AAA game where, like, one creator is given, like, that much creative freedom, but that's clashing with the studio. So it's almost like a Heaven's Gate situation with, like, film where, like, Michael Cimino is given, like, all this money to make, like, this huge, like, grand Western. But I think the difference is there's never been like a huge, I don't know, some people say Shenmue might be like Vince Gate of video games just because of how much money was like put into it for like relatively little profit in return. So maybe like Death Stranding is sort of like a buck to that trend because Sony did give Kojima like a lot of money, but you really don't see like those types of projects like being that normal in the video game industry anymore.
It's strange too because the entire idea of a game chasing Hollywood standards is strange given how big the industry is now, because it in the past always seemed like chasing legitimacy in a sense. But now the gaming industry is making money hand over fist in comparison to the movie industry, especially now with the pandemic going on. The gaming industry is booming. And yet games still seem to try to chase that Hollywood prestige for some reason. It seems odd to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And actually, speaking of that, I started The Last of Us Part 2, last week. It was in my backlog for a while. I sort of wanted to play it, away from all the hype. And so I'm only about like an hour or two into this, but it's a really like beautiful game, like presentation wise, but like gameplay wise, I'm thinking to myself, why did this have to be a video game? And also, why did this have to be a video game? And if you turn this into a movie, I think it would kind of almost be laughed at just because of, the cliches of the genre that it adds. Maybe it's like unique for video games. And I feel this way about the first one too. It's unique as like a video game experience, but then when you put the same story and the same characters into film, this has been done like 100 times really in the same genre.
Yeah, I'd agree. And it seems like the games that sort of escape that awkwardness when it comes to trying to tell a Hollywood style story, or the ones that reach that level of legitimacy, tend to be the ones that are more underplayed. So I know this is a cliche, but Shadow of the Colossus, with how low key the story is, you never really have to struggle to take it seriously.
Yeah, and then also that also plays, the idea of all the talk of Metal Gear becoming a movie. I'm trying to think like, how would you do this? Because the one that's like in development now. It's not supposed to be an adaptation of MGS1. From what I hear, it's supposed to be like a mix of like aspects from different games. But like, what kind of story would you tell? And is it a story that people would actually take seriously?
So it's making a Metal Gear Solid movie. A Metal Gear Solid movie is probably one of the most ironic choices you could make in terms of making a video game movie, because MGS is one of those games that only really works as a game. You're stripping out part of its soul if you reduce it to just the cutscenes in a sense. But with this idea of it being an amalgam of sorts of the different aspects of the franchise, I've said this before, but I worry it's going to end up somewhat like the live action Ghost in the Shell movie, where it's trying to be all of the different aspects of the series at once while never really having its own identity. It's like grabbing thing A and thing B and thing C because they're interesting and visually iconic, but putting them into a space that they don't make sense in anymore. They made sense in this place, but now you've stripped them of their context, and they're just they're just eye candy now. They're fan service, and I worry that's what Metal Gear's going to be.
Can I make another example? Because I think this one will be a little closer to what you're talking about. Silent Hill, those movies, how they add all okay, of course everything after 4 they just add Pyramid Head with no context. But in the movie, I think the movie was like the first big example of that, where it just felt like they threw in Pyramid Head so that all the fans could have their moment, when in reality we were all actually kind of pissed off.
It's funny too, because the second movie just they dropped all pretense of trying to be serious. And I mean, I know it was a different director at that point, but man, they sure did go all in on that Pyramid Head kung fu battle.
I was about to say, wasn't there like a fist fight between Pyramid Head and someone else?
Yeah, Claudia, right?
I think so. And then what's his face from A Clockwork Orange was Leonard.
Yeah, that's just weird.
I've never actually seen it though, but from what I've read of the first film, that director got really lucky to have Konami entrust that IP to him. It seems to me something like that would never happen today.
I'll give him this. He tried. He really tried.
Was this like a situation where they took a not what sort of like Marvel does or used to do, where they take a not so well known director so that they can kind of stand behind him and say, hey, we have a lot more power here. Like there's a power dynamic there, so he can't really be creative or expressive. Was that like a similar case with Silent Hill?
Well, it was Christopher Gans, wasn't it, that did Silent Hill?
I think so. Yeah.
And I mean, he's a French filmmaker and had done a handful of films before then, but he wasn't really hugely mainstream in Hollywood. And I know he was a big fan of the franchise, but from what I understand, he had pretty much free reign to do what he wanted with the film.
Okay. You know what? That makes sense because I remember in like one interview he had, I guess he didn't think that Harry was a good enough protagonist because he wasn't like a mom or something. So that's why they made it Rose instead of Harry.
Yeah. Well, also, just that's also a reason why, like, I'm happy that they did to make, like, the BioShock movie, for example, because to me, there's some games where the gameplay is like so central to the narrative that if you turn it into a movie, you lose that. I mean, BioShock is about free will, and what medium can you actually, talk about free will the best? Well, a video game, because you're controlling the character, and so it's like that meta narrative. You don't have that in film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't for the BioShock film when they were still doing that? Wasn't Gore Verbinski tied to that?
Yeah, he was, and also the studio wanted to do like a gritty R-rated film, so not to water it down, but they actually went with Watchmen Ed. So for better or worse.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the best.
I gotta think about that one.
No, the best video game movies that I've seen are the ones that are usually they're like anime adaptations. So like the Street Fighter 2 anime film, it's like leagues better than the live action film. Though the live action film has its fans, like sort of like in a ironic sense. But there's also the Phoenix Wright movie, Mike Takashi. He like adapted into like a live action film. That was actually pretty close to the game.
I've seen that. That was pretty entertaining.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, though I do wonder though that if you show that to somebody who had never played the games, would they still have the same enjoyment, or is it something just for the fans?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I was thinking of that scene where it was like, before Christmas is not Christmas.
Yeah, it did get like the the tone of the game pretty well, I would say. And then also there's an anime film that's based off Professor Layton, or it's more like a side story in between the games. So that one was quite good. And also, I guess if you're a Pokemon fan, I'm sure the movies are probably enjoyable just to see the characters.
The Animal Crossing animes or I think there's one of them, but that was pretty enjoyable. It set the tone pretty well.
Yeah, actually, fun fact: the first time that I ever heard the Japanese language when I was like I think 5 or 6 was the Super Mario Brothers, the anime film, the really obscure one from I think 1986. It's like an hour long, and someone had uploaded it to YouTube. There was no subtitles, there was no indication of what was going on, and But as a kid, I'm like, oh, it's Mario, and he's moving, and it's a cartoon. Yay!
What did you think of the Castlevania animated series?
I saw the first. Are they on season 3 now? I think. Yeah. I saw season 1 and 2. I never got to season 3, but I like it a lot. It actually it kind of gave me hope for Western animation because it's very rare these days for me to watch any. I have little spare time to watch anime anyways, but when I do watch animation, it's rare to watch a Western animation for me these days. But I was quite pleasantly surprised by that film, by that series. I mean,
that leads me to think that maybe the correct way to adapt Metal Gear into something, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is to do an animated series, possibly even an anthology series.
Yeah, though there is one thing though. I don't know if you want to open this can of worms with how like politicized everything is. If you put it in the hands of like some writers that are like you're trying to push some kind of political agenda, and especially with a series as political as Metal Gear, if they would actually respect the source material or try to like rewrite MGS2 to mean no, it's actually about the 2016 election or something like that. Because if they did that, I think that would be a big disservice to the games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for the anniversary today, I posted a MGS2 cover that I had made a while back, and this kid commented on Twitter, attached a video of Raiden talking to President Johnson about the Patriots, and he said, when I played this as a kid, this part stuck with me ever since. This game made me believe in conspiracy theories to the max. Still do to this day. I was just like, oh, you missed the point, buddy. Shit.
That reminds me, and I know I've said this before, I've told this story in the past, but on one of the old Metal Gear forums, there was a guy who was inspired by Metal Gear Solid to join the military.
Oh, no.
And yeah, it was just pages and pages of replies of people essentially just face palming.
Yeah, well, that's almost like, you read American Psycho and you think, yeah, this book is a glorification of murder, and that's all this book is. People just miss the point completely on some stuff. Even they miss the point completely on some like works that are actually the message is not like complex at all. It's like written there right in front of you.
Right.
It reminds me of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, and he was hoping that people would like understand workers' rights and how these people are treated. And then the book came out, and everybody was just worried how like their can of meat was produced.
Yeah.
All right, so I gotta ask you something, and this has been my ulterior motive for getting you on this show for a while now.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
how in the world do you prefer the Twin Snakes over the original Metal Gear Solid?
Oh, we're getting into this topic now, are we?
I gotta know, man.
Okay,
we gotta have this out.
That was your first, right? You played Twin Snakes first?
Well, after Metal Gear 1 and 2, like when I played on the MSX2, I moved to, the Twin Snakes because keep in mind, I didn't have a PlayStation. So
that was your first run, and that was like all you knew, and then you went to the PlayStation version later.
yeah, I
So
did.
you're like,
Listen, I've played the PlayStation version at least 3 or 4 times, and also, like I said, once completely through in Japanese. So it's not like that I don't know what the PlayStation version is. It's just that.
Oh yeah. I was just saying, like, experience Twin Snakes first can make you like just appreciate it more versus like having the first one, like that expectation and going into the remake and you're like, oh, I think that's kind of a weird phenomenon too. Like with Demon's Souls, if people are playing this new one on PS5 for the first time, they're probably like, hell yeah. But if you have that experience, I know.
Don't you try to rationalize this, Fingers. I want to be angry about this.
You'll probably be angry at this too because I compare it to the Star Wars prequels because people my age, those are the first Star Wars films we actually watched, and I think people of my generation are more willing to defend those movies than I think somebody who was too old for them when they came out or grew up with the original ones.
They're better than the fucking.
I have
Disney
wondered
sequels.
too I've wondered too if kids growing up with the new Disney sequels
if they're just gonna hate Star Wars,
will look back on them fondly.
I just don't think they give a fuck about Star Wars.
No. Yeah, I think
they're
everybody
about
said
I
Fortnite
don't either.
and-
So I have 2 young boys, and I took them both to see all 3 of the Star Wars sequels, and they did not care in the slightest.
it just doesn't have the character. It doesn't have the heart. Like, I mean, that's a big problem that I'm having with a lot of media right now. It's just like, I'm like, ugh, where's the good stuff? I just feel like everything's a service.
Well, you'd be proud of me because my girlfriend had never seen any Star Wars movies at all, not once. So what we did was we watched every single one in the order they came out, and I even showed her the despecialized editions. So she gets
Ooh, there you
nice.
the actual Star Wars ones. And then the opinion was the originals are the best. The prequels we're watching them, they're okay. And then the sequels, well, this is just a retread of everything that came before it and just not as good. And the standalone films are marginally better. So I didn't have to really push her to come to that opinion.
All right, you know what? I'm going to take away your Metal Gear card for Twin Snakes, but I'm going to give you a Star Wars card.
Oh, okay. That's good then.
Well, another thing about the prequels too is that despite the fact that the script and the writing was bad, they still had some world building. With the Jedi and the history of them and all the planets and whatnot. It's just they all were behind a green screen with really crappy dialogue.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wrote this tweet that kind of went viral last year. It was it's a picture of of Hideo Kojima, and I said be young visionary director, doubted by everybody, creates a breakthrough success. He's associated with the brand, but then it's taken away from him by the studio, and then the later ones aren't as enjoyed by the fans, and be George Lucas, pick unrelated.
I saw a picture today that was the Predator handshake meme, and it said Game of Thrones, Star Wars. Shit gets fucked up once George leaves.
Oh man.
Did they wait? They came out around the same time too, didn't they? Wasn't the finale last year around the time the last Star Wars film came out?
It was, and a lot of people compared the two where the leaks came out and people were in disbelief, and then some of the previews hinted at the leaks, and then by the time the film came out, everybody kind of everything was confirmed, and it was everyone's worst nightmare.
And didn't the Game of Thrones guys quit to do Star Wars stuff? Is it that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also Ryan Johnson is
Oh my
supposedly
God.
getting his own trilogy, which God help.
Is that
us.
still happening?
Well, that it's still rumored. There was a rumor that it wasn't happening, but he I didn't confirm that. So, but
I have not seen Knives Out, but I've heard it's excellent.
yeah, it's
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I liked it. I liked it more than I think. The thing is, with Ryan Johnson, I've also seen Looper, where it had a good concept, but then it just fell apart at the ending. So he's good with some basic ideas, but I think execution could be a bit better with him.
So he's the Resident Evil of movie directors in that he can't stick the landing.
Yeah, and also I don't think he responds to criticism that well either. Because if you look at his Twitter, maybe he's toned it down, but before he would like really be, mocking people that didn't like The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like I've got the feelings, it's like, yeah, this movie sucked. I didn't really enjoy it, but I'm not like tweeting at him. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of like the most annoying part about this.
That's like so weird to think. Can you imagine if like Orson Welles had Twitter and like someone said I didn't really care for Citizen Kane. I think, and then like tweeting it and then like he's actually
Yeah.
responding back. That just shows
Oh, Orson Welles would never have a Twitter. There is I remember we watched The Last Jedi in theaters, and I was kind of indifferent towards it at first, and I'm still kind of indifferent towards it. It just didn't entertain me.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker was that for me. I was just like, man, I am checked out during this movie. I actually fell
Dude,
asleep in the theater.
Yeah, I fell asleep too.
In the theater, dude. Like,
There's only one movie I would say I enjoyed less in the past 5 years than The Last Jedi, and that would be Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom.
No, I didn't even see that. I saw the first Jurassic World and then I kind of checked out after.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
You made the right choice.
Yeah.
I'm a big Jurassic Park fan. I know it's
Me
kind
too.
of silly, but I love those movies. And Fallen Kingdom is so hilariously awful that I walked out of that theater with my wife and kids, and I was just like, did we just pay for that?
yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go on a rant. Yeah,
That's always an awkward talk to have in your kids when you just leave a shitty movie and nobody's really talking because you all know it's trash.
I need to just take my kids to better movies. Is what I need to do.
Well, you can't really do that now, can you? I guess.
Yeah, not really.
You had your chance. Sorry.
Though in Japan, the movie theaters they're all open and they're back to like normal seating. What they did was like so it was only like every other seat was open, but I think they're going back to normal seating now too, and then normal show times.
So Japan's almost back to complete normalcy at this point, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's like if there's like 200 like COVID cases a day, that's considered to be like big, and 200 COVID cases a day, you're laughing about that like in the U.S.
Jeez.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I did read that there was some sort of I'm probably going to completely screw this up, but there was some report about the Japanese government saying that foreigners who were in Japan weren't understanding their COVID guidelines, something like
Oh,
that.
that-
And that was
yeah, don't believe that. There's it's on my Twitter. I like retweeted like this guy kind of debunking that, where all it was saying was like there's
Oh.
they're saying there's like language barriers that need to be addressed. Like we need to communicate this better towards people who don't speak Japanese. It wasn't blaming foreigners for what happened. It wasn't saying that it's their fault. It's just so this is this other thing too that English speaking expat Twitter does, and they'll like try to like make these claims about like how Japan is. It'll get retweeted by people that don't live here and they only hear this one perspective, so they think this is like what it actually is, but it isn't.
The misinformation age.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the other thing too. Like if you don't live here, it's really easy to jump to conclusions.
So I mean, would you say the biggest culture shock in moving from the U.S. to Japan?
Well, I'm from an Asian background already, so my dad's side is Chinese, so I already had like some experience of like what the East Asian mentality, like collectivism versus individualism is. That wasn't actually that big of a culture shock to me. I guess it's more just like my conception of how like Japanese people express emotions. A lot of people view them as like cold people. They don't emote easily, but I really don't find that the case. I think they just emote differently than how Westerners do. But they still emote, obviously.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like a big thing with the games. Like, if there isn't there like a lot of that, like just body language and stuff in Metal Gear 2 that we're obviously probably not picking up on.
Yeah, there is. And actually, like if you think that with our perceptions of Japan is bad, I mean, like I cover North Korea. A lot of people have these conceptions of what Korean people are like, and I've actually met North Koreans, and they're normal people like everybody else. They're just in a really, really bad situation. So, I think it's easy to, like I said, it's easy to jump to conclusions if you've never met somebody from a certain place or you've never been there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you've answered this question a million times, and not to take us too far off track, but what got you interested in pursuing North Korea academically?
Well, that's because my dad's side, they all lived through the Cultural Revolution in China. So I have a really huge sympathy for people who live, in communist countries or post-communist countries. So the human rights situation is what interested me in reading more about North Korea. And then because I have the Japanese background, that I got interested in, how Japan, handles North Korea and the history between both countries.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of tension there considering how many missiles they shoot over.
Yeah, and well, again, I don't want to get political. I don't want to open this can of worms. But now that Biden is going to be president, the idea is like, are they going to actually go back to ICBM testing? Because they promised under the Trump administration that we won't do ICBM testing as a gesture of goodwill. Well, if he's gone, it could be like a reset to zero. And so, sooner or later, the next administration is going to have to deal with that problem.
I did see this morning there was something with like Russian subs or Russian ships were like doing something with Alaskan like fishing vessels. Like just they were like, ordering them that they were about to be fired on and to turn around and stuff. And they were in like safe water. So there's definitely some tensions rising internationally for sure.
Are we going to talk about the food?
Food? The food of what? The food of Japan?
We have to address the food, Oliver.
Oh, yeah. I noticed you're actually, while you also tweet about international politics, there are a few other tweets about like food, mostly like international food.
Yeah.
I paid a lot of attention to that. And you had like a great breakfast last week, so I'm also jealous.
No, that's like almost every week.
I was trying to compare. Nitroid apparently had the best breakfast, so I was trying to compare you two. In any case, yeah, I noticed there was an abundance of like food topics and international foods posted. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, no, Japan has a really good diverse variety of different food, and especially seafood, because meat is like, beef and that's more expensive here than fish. So, no, there's no shortage of that. Yeah.
Never really thought of that. But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I've just never thought of it.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Oliver probably had a better breakfast than me, despite where I went. I went on vacation to, it was a short little weekend vacation to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and had a breakfast at a place called Crockett's, and they had these like 2-inch thick pancakes stacked in threes, and it was just insane.
That reminds me of when I went to the Roscoe's, I think it's the chicken waffles in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So like those huge portions. Yeah. It never surprises me, what the excesses of, American food.
Although we're going to have to talk about your pizza.
Oh, well, I'm working with like a toaster oven, so doing the best I can.
All right, because you wouldn't have a full-size oven. Never mind. I take it back.
But also I'm doing the dough and the sauce and everything from scratch, and I'm going to the import grocery store to actually get high-quality mozzarella cheese, so it's not like I'm cheaping out on the ingredients here.
Good man. All right, I rescind my complaint.
No, most Japanese...
I retract my complaint.
Most Japanese apartments don't have ovens. Though I will say, I think, my calzones, those turn out okay, I think. But
yeah, those would probably be easier to cook.
A calzone is just a pizza that a cook said, fuck it, and flipped it over.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is a cooking podcast now. But no, what I do is I put like an egg wash over the dough so it actually turns golden brown.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Or as we call it in bumfuck Tennessee, where all we have is a Pizza Hut. A pizzone.
Well, we also we do have Domino's and Pizza Hut like in Japan, and I would say the quality is better, but like it's not American style pizza. And you look this up. There's tons of like weird Japanese pizza toppings like squid and like mayonnaise and all different.
Oh
types.
no!
So
no,
which is just like corn too. So which is really funny when people say,
"Oh, stop it!"
It's like you're complaining about pineapple pizza, but like if you come here, that's like a normal topic. That's like not. And I've had comments where like I just try to have like a quote unquote normal American pizza, like pepperoni, mushrooms, olives, that kind of stuff. And one like Japanese friend was saying like, oh, that's pretty generic, isn't it? Like where are the toppings?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they're saying like, is there something wrong? Like, why didn't you add any toppings to this?
So I'm guessing like the concept of an extra cheese pizza is just like lost on them.
They actually Domino's have that now, where it's like I think a whole kilogram of cheese like on one pizza. So
Yes. There we go. All right, now we're talking my language.
No, you'd be surprised though. We're like I'm surprised too sometimes, like how Japanese food has a reputation for being like small portioned and like you get very little, but sometimes they go all out where like it is a really like huge comparable portion. There's like a pizza place that's about a 10-minute bus ride away from where I live. They serve like actual like New York style sliced pieces of pizza where it's like the size of your face.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's really surprising. See, my wife and I have been talking about taking a vacation to Japan one of these days, just going for 2 weeks and seeing as much as we can. And the big thing we're excited about is the food.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to go. Go to the izakayas, the bars. Those have like a really good drinks, really good bar food.
Yeah, we won't be taking the kids with us. So.
Well, the rumor is that like from April 2021, that's when they're going to gradually start opening tourism because they still want to do the Olympics. But I think it's going to be by country basis. And I have the feeling that America's probably going to be one of the last ones that they open up to.
I mean, can you blame them?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them.
No.
The real question is, have you made a Neo Kobe pizza?
No, not yet. But that is based off like an actual. You might know that's based off the type of like
you do the soup
takoyaki
thing, yeah.
Yeah, I've had the normal takoyaki. I've never had the one with the soup though. I should have though because I studied abroad in Kobe, 3 years ago. So next time I'm there, I should try to consider doing that.
I figured being a Snatcher fan, you might have gone out and tried it.
Yeah.
I heard Japan has a thing for like fried chicken. Is that true?
Yes, it is. And Kentucky Fried Chicken is huge over here. And the rumors you've heard about like eating it at Christmas time, that's true too. Where it's like a limited edition.
Why?
Why?
Are you asking why they like fried chicken? Really?
No, I'm just asking why it's a
No,
phenomenon.
why is it a Christmas tradition?
Yeah, like
I think this might just be
why
like an
not
urban legend.
Bojangles, man?
Well, this might just be an urban legend, but I think it's because like when the American servicemen were like in Japan, they didn't really have access to turkey, but they had fried chicken, so that's somehow. But I don't know if that's actually true or not. I could be completely false.
Interesting.
But like, why the Christmas association?
Well, that's because they would have like a turkey dinner at Christmas. Yeah,
Maybe turkey for Christmas.
Oh, I get it. I completely missed that. Wow.
you're good.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, though, the spices I think are slightly different than what we have in America, and the runs are actually much cleaner. And that's actually one, I guess, culture shock thing. You actually have people who like study in fast food restaurants here. So if you go to McDonald's, there's students everywhere just like studying for their exams, and because the restaurants are clean enough and to do that basically, but they're almost like cafes.
So it's like a Starbucks situation, yeah.
Not to keep going down this rabbit hole, but how similar is the food at McDonald's to what we have in the U.S.?
That's actually closer to the U.S., but I should say it's better because like they adhere to the style book more, and like I said, the restaurants are cleaner. So I don't
That's
have
a really nice way of saying they give a shit.
yeah.
Make stuff to spec.
There's a McDonald's across the street from where I live too, so got to be careful. Got to resist the urge not to just not cook and just go there.
But do they have breakfast all day?
They do not, and that's actually one other thing too. It's until 10:30.
Man, that's just wrong.
So basically, the only time I can have that is if I can actually like force myself to get out of bed, early enough to go across the street to get that, or wake up early, do some exercise, and then justify that. Then okay, you've worked hard. Time for the egg McMuffin. Doing it the Bill Clinton way, where you go to McDonald's after running a marathon.
This guy knows his political history.
Yeah, seriously.
Hold on, real quick. Would you eat a calorie mate, or have you eaten
Yeah,
a calorie
yeah.
mate?
I have eaten a calorie mate, and don't do it. Do it once if you want to be like Snake, but they're terrible. Though I do have a British friend.
All right.
I have a British friend who's into like fitness and stuff, and whenever he doesn't have like a meal or he needs to like compensate for that, then he'll eat a calorie mate. But I don't think it's aimed at like normal people.
All right, look. I like calorie mates. All right, I like them, but I also like shortbread cookies. So like, I got nothing.
So your taste is bad, confirmed. Okay.
Calorie mates remind me of that that bar that Katie gave Regina George in like Mean Girls, where she's like, it's gonna help you lose weight, but it actually helps like starving kids in Africa gain weight. Like that's how I visualize calorie mate.
What always bothered me though is the anachronism in MGS3 where like it appears, but the calorie mate didn't actually come out until years later. Though I think I have the sense that at this point he kind of does that on purpose, just to like to met people who are into stuff like that.
Which one did you try?
I think the normal flavor.
Oh,
The Walkman, for example. I don't think it came out like in the 70s when Peace Walker came out after, didn't it?
Well, they had that advanced R&D,
Oh yeah,
They had
I forgot. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah. They get the prototypes.
And they also somehow
Military has it before.
did they even have Mountain Dew and Doritos back then too?
No, Big Boss
Axe body
invented
spray.
it.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's one thing. I don't know if you knew this. In the Japanese version of Peace Walker, there's a whole radio conversation about how Kaz, like his favorite American food is Doritos. And I don't think that was in like the Western.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever been translated. I've never seen that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty funny.
That's great.
Now I just like picture Kaz eating lunch and there's like a hamburger and then like a pile of Doritos on the other side of the plate.
He puts the Doritos in the burger, like
Oh,
people do
no.
like chips and yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's just because remember he's like half Japanese and he spent his childhood in Japan. But I think just the way that he's performed, because Robert Atkin Downs he's a really good voice actor, but he is like the most American accent ever. So you wouldn't really
Yeah.
think that.
You know what's funny? Doritos came out in 1964. Son of a bitch.
Oh, well then, yeah, I guess maybe they did get to Costa Rica.
Spot
then.
on.
My
Yeah.
God. I'm gonna bet. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Axe body spray did not come out until much later.
Yeah, they were a little late.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, there's the songs in MGS5 where they came out after 1984. Like Friday I'm in Love by The Cure. That was definitely not an 80s song.
Akira sent them like a WIP before they had released it.
The budget for that game, probably half of that had to come from like music licensing.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheap.
And you know what's going to probably happen if that game ever gets released again? It's probably those songs are probably going to be like taken out, or like it won't have all of them, because that's usually what happens with those types of licensed music.
There was a song that was going to be included originally that wasn't. I mean, just one of them. I think there were more, but one that springs to mind was "Party All the Time" by Eddie Murphy. And that was another one that was about a year after the game takes place.
Well, also I will say that MGS5, that is also what got me into new wave music too, with Japan and David Sylvian.
Nice.
Yeah.
At this rate, whatever music they cut out is probably a good idea because you're going to get a DMCA claim for it anyway. Twitch has lost their damn minds, or their record companies.
Just press mute, y'all. Just press mute on your game.
I saw somebody got muted for a sound effect, and I also saw someone got muted while playing Phasmophobia, and they whispered something, and then that whisper got traced back to some like YouTube video where it's like prayer or something, like where they're whispering and it's just getting matched up. It's getting crazy, man.
What?
Yeah. It was like, oh, this is some whispering recording that someone did on YouTube, and it's like I just whispered, but it matched up, and that person got a strike. Twitch needs to fix their shit.
Nitro, did you see that tweet from Twitch support?
Yeah, where they said, "Oh, just mute your game."
Yeah.
Yeah, mute your music, and then now people are getting hit for sound effects. Persona 5, someone got hit for the police siren, and that matched with the police siren sound bank on YouTube. And they got hit.
You know what's funny is I've uploaded Metal Gear trailers to YouTube before, and I've gotten hit with content ID because some random artist has sampled a Metal Gear track.
Yeah. That's how
the
this all gets
copyright will go to the
too.
random artist.
Yeah, because they won't have a content ID claim on the original, like, that's like pursuing people, but then the person that remixed it did, and then it's like through your distributor, sometimes it's just like a checkbox that you can just have on there, and it's like, yeah, I'll do that, sure, why not?
And I've been able to dispute it a couple of times because I've got like the little script that I can send out, but it's not mine, so like I can't really dispute it.
Yeah,
it's weird.
That's where it sucks with like cover stuff, and when you're using other IPs, you're like, shit, this isn't original if it really goes all the way.
Yeah, but you know what? How YouTube is really arbitrary. Like not just Twitch, YouTube, for example. So there's copyright strike system on there too, obviously. But I've like uploaded like full movies and like full obscure like documentaries and stuff, and like Japanese music videos that are like subtitled in English just so other people can see them, and like those have not been copyright striked.
Yeah, it has to be in that content ID system or manually claimed by, the rights owner at that point.
I get the need for it, but it's just there are so many false positives. It's insane.
But right now the AI is just going batshit crazy. Like it's just like it's making these like false positives where it's like that's not even that, and that person doesn't even own this, and this person's being fraudulent, and these people are making claims. It's just like there's so many bad things happening right now all at the same time. So, and now the record labels are like, oh, people are playing music on Twitch. Oh, get over there now. And like they sent all the attack dogs in the past couple weeks.
Well, what's even worse is like when videos are called like, it's only for children. So, we have to disable the comments. You can't get notifications when this goes live.
Ugh.
Like, so like for NK News, which is the website that like I'm a journalist for, we have a YouTube channel, and we sometimes like upload like, interviews that like our staff does with like, ABC or like, CNN or whatever. But those will get like, demonetized or like called like children's content because, talking about North Korea and like, the threat of nuclear weapons, that's stuff, appropriate for children, obviously.
What?
Yeah, it says like, because this video is aimed at children, you can't comment, you can't like, get notifications when this video goes live.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole system got really screwed up this year too. It feels like Emma Emmerich's worm cluster got like uploaded into YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah,
but
but there's actual like North Korea propaganda on YouTube. So and like they have like this like weird dance where like they keep it on, and then sometimes it goes off, but then it goes back on. So
I saw a video on one of those North Korean channels that showed I don't remember the name. You probably know. It's the giant
Echo of Truth, I think, might be the YouTube channel.
Well, it was that giant hotel in Pyongyang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had a pizza parlor in there, and it showed them making pizza. And I was so deeply offended by how badly they made that pizza that I didn't know what to do with myself.
Damn, are you Italian or something, Nitroid?
That actually might be from my friend Masayuki Adamaki, because he's a researcher who's been to like North Korea, I think like 30 times. I interviewed him earlier this year, and he has a YouTube channel where for some reason, they let him film in Pyongyang. They let him film like all stuff like that without any kind of restriction. So then he's been uploading it to his YouTube channel for years. So I think that's maybe I might have shared that, and maybe you saw that.
Well, clearly that country has a lot of problems, and pizza is one of them.
Well, they have hamburgers, and Kim Jong Il claimed that he invented the hamburger in North Korea, which is technically not untrue because for the first time in North Korea, would have been his decision to let that in.
That is not true. Kazuhira Miller invented the hamburger.
It's true.
Kanan.
Hey, that was 100% all beef patty, and no shortening in the bun either.
So, Oliver, do you think with the PS5 just having launched, you're going to pick one up?
Yeah, that's the thing about the PS5. In Japan, you can't actually pre-order it. You could only get into a lottery to pre-order it. So if you win the lottery, then you can pre-order it.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and so the thing about that is a couple weeks ago, me and my girlfriend, we each did we both entered like a separate lottery so we could have like a better chance, and then neither of us got it. So then this week, some places are doing like a last lottery because it's the week that it came out. So whatever stock they have on hand, they'll let you pre-order that. So we should get the results within a few days, but just given the sheer amount of people that have entered that lottery, it's pretty unlikely. And I get the sense that if I don't get it now, probably not until probably next spring when they have more stock will we be able to get it.
Godspeed, man.
We're just wait for the other version of this that's going to come out soon, probably. I've heard that that internal hard drive space is not very much.
Yeah, it actually might be a better idea to wait because I think with the OS and everything, you only have about 600 gigs of usable memory, and Call of Duty Cold War is I think 130 gigs, which to me is insane. So,
well, isn't there an M.2 drive slot inside of it?
I think they're eventually gonna put out some kind of expandable storage that they're not allowing third party. I did see that, but they're gonna probably come out with their own line that is gonna be expandable. I'm sure that's.
Oh, so it's got the expansion slot, but it doesn't actually work yet. That's
not for third party anything.
As far as I know, I don't think there's any solid state drive that's on the market that actually is compatible with the write speeds or the read speeds of the PlayStation 5 yet.
That's interesting.
And now that it's out, they, of course, people are probably going to try to, make attempts to it. But, Sony's been pretty good at locking shit out that, isn't supposed to be there. RIP PT.
Yeah, I got one, and the first thing I tried to do was transfer over PT, and I thought, okay, so there were reports that people who had received, I thought wrong. There were reports early on from people who had review consoles that PT was transferable and it was working. But then due to, I guess, publisher request, in a system software patch, it was disabled.
Yeah.
So PT was compatible initially on the review systems, and then the system was patched, and then it became incompatible.
Yeah.
And publisher request makes it sound like that was something Konami requested. So I was wondering if the OS that the console shipped with would allow it if I kept it offline and didn't update.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this was not the case because you are required to log in to your account in order to transfer content from your PS4 over to your PS5. And in order to log in, your system has to be up to date. So I was forced into updating.
Yeah.
And there was no way around it. So PT is DOA.
So wait, is the only way to play that game still on a base PS4? You couldn't even transfer it to a PS4 Pro?
I have it on a Pro.
Okay.
You can transfer it to a Pro.
I think it's what is it? As long as your account is authorized to play it on the PlayStation 4, you can transfer it.
You can, but the catch is that you can't download it anymore off of PSN without a weird workaround.
Oh, right, that proxy workaround. I remember.
Yeah, and I'm not even completely sure why that works. But I had to re-download it at one point, and that worked for me, and I was able to copy it back to my PS4. And then when I got my Pro, I was able to flip that over, and it works just fine. So I'm never getting rid of that.
Isn't that just insane that how in 2020 where basically it's almost like old silent films where if the last copy burns, that's it, the game is gone, and there's no way to preserve this game.
I mean, I have to say, devil's advocate, I understand why Konami is like this because that is we talked to Maxwell in a previous episode, and he sort of elaborated on this a bit, where PT represents something that it represents a product that doesn't exist, that got canceled. So it essentially is just a reminder that this product did not come out. So, hypothetically, you could strip out all of the, you could strip out Norman Reedus and the references to Kojima and Del Toro, and strip out the references to Silent Hills, and just have it as like a standalone little horror title, and that would probably fly. But as is, it's just this strange thing that represents a product that never came out, and it's little more to Konami than a reminder of something they weren't able to put out. So I kind of understand why they wouldn't want to keep it up to date and accessible like that, but it would it's kind of out of their hands now. It's a part of gaming history. So I don't know. Maybe someday they'll reconcile with it, but who knows?
Sad.
Did you ever have a chance to play PT?
No, because when it came out, I didn't have a PS4, and then by the time I did get a PS4, it was too late. So.
Oh man.
Well, let me say that I've played some of like the PC recreations of PT, but as far as I know, I don't think any actually have the story. I think it's just like, you can walk in the room and you can interact with stuff.
That Unreal recreation of PT is pretty spot on though.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. And I guess the guy who made that was he like 19 years old, and he got an internship at Konami, something like that.
Yeah, well,
So
good for him then. That's good when stuff like that happens.
So if my wife and I ever make it out to Japan and I get a chance to visit you, I'll bring it down with me. If I can
you'll bring the full PS4, and then just so I can play like this like 1-2 hour game. Is it how long does it take? Is it even 2 hours? Is it 1 hour?
No, I mean you can get through it pretty quick. If you don't know what you're doing, it might take you like a half hour to an hour.
Okay.
But if you know what you're doing, it's pretty quick. I don't know. I mean, how difficult would that be to bring to Japan?
No, not at all. I've taken consoles back and forth all the time. I was in the States recently, and I brought my Dreamcast back here, so that's definitely possible.
Nice.
I would say that's some of the easier things that I've traveled through TSA. I know you don't have to deal with TSA much, Oliver.
Oh, I've traveled between here and the States like at least like 7 times at this point, like back and forth. So,
jeez.
Yeah, you get used to it after a while, but the worst is just all the transfers.
Oh,
How
yeah.
long is that flight anyway? Is that like 9 hours or something?
Oh, so if you put it all together, it takes over 24 hours to get back to Pittsburgh from where I'm from Kyoto. That includes.
Oh my god.
That includes like getting to the airport by like by train, layovers, waiting and all that. It's a nightmare, but just keep
Worst
yourself
jet
occupied.
lag ever.
Oh, actually, well, because of jet lag, that's when I go to bed at normal time because I'm tired that I'm going to bed at like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. when instead of as opposed to like 3 or 4 a.m.
Also, it just loops over.
It loops over, and so like, and what happened now is like, so I came back like a few weeks ago, and so I'm sleeping at normal time. But now because I got so busy with like school stuff, I'm up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. So now it's like reset back to my old terrible schedule. So
One of these days, I'm gonna do it. I'm getting old, and it's a lot harder, but damn it, I'm gonna do it.
Everybody should visit once, I would say.
Man, thank you for coming on. I've wanted to actually have a conversation with you for such a long time, and I'm really, really glad you were willing to come on and just chat for a bit.
Anytime.
Man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. So if people want to find you online, if they want to kind of see your work and what you're doing, where can they find you?
I think Twitter is probably the best. So it's Oliver and then JIA 1014. That's my handle. But if you look up my name, it's the first result on Google too, for better or worse. So
got that SEO unlocked.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you for
you. I know. I
coming.
really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
Pleasure being with you.